Hello and welcome back to the Chargers Check-In. My name is Cecilia and we are going to take a look at this upcoming matchup with the Colts in Los Angeles. I know a lot of you are really nervous about this, but there's a lot to look forward to. We're going to find out a lot about both teams this week. Both teams are undefeated in the AFC. The Colts come in as the number one with their 5-1 record. So we're going to take a look at the state of the Colts and what they are bringing to the table, as well as the Chargers. And we are going to end it with a final score prediction. But before we do that, I wanted to look at some trade rumors real quick. There have been reports that the Chargers are scouring the league for running backs, that they have made a lot of calls. A lot of people are pointing to Miami because there was a report that they are looking to get a first-round draft pick in exchange for Devon Achane, and to that I say I would be furious if the Chargers did that. I think that's a terrible idea. I think that is a drastic overpay for a running back. I think for a first-round pick, you better be Saquon Barkley. And Devon Achane is not Saquon Barkley. Obviously, since I made the running back trade options video, his draft value has gone up. He has had a stretch of really good games. In games where Tua has played terrible, he has been the engine of the offense. So it makes sense after his performance against the Chargers that more teams are interested. The price will go up, but the idea that it should go up to a first-round pick is ridiculous to me. I don't think the Chargers should do it. I don't think any team should do it. I cannot comprehend paying more than a third-round pick from any team. You know, I think about how many good running backs are taken after day one. I mean, just this last year, Cam Scatterbo, taken in the 4th round. Krosky Merritt taken in the 7th round. Bucky Irving in the 4th round. To me, for a running back, fit matters more than talent. To me, it makes more sense to up your running game through the offensive line, through the tight ends, through blocking wide receivers even, than it does through the running back position. So I just think this is a drastic overpay, but I don't think that the Chargers are going to pay that much for anyone anyways. Not when they have Amari and Hampton on the way back. That being said, let's take a look at the state of both of these teams, starting out with the injury report. Now, on the Colts side, Braden Smith didn't practice. He usually has rest days on Wednesday, so I wouldn't think too much of that. He will likely play, it seems. Their second running back, Tyler Goodson, he's still out with a groin injury. It seems that he is trending toward not playing. Wide receiver Josh Downs is out with a concussion. I'm sure some of you saw his touchdown last week where he took a huge hit and was immediately out. He managed to hold on to the ball. It was an impressive play, but he is still out with a concussion. Kenny Moore is trending towards coming back. This is a big deal for a depleted cornerback room for the Colts. He could be a big help in their passing defense. Last week he was out with an ankle injury, so we will see. We got to keep an eye on that. And Travarius Ward is out with a concussion. He actually got that concussion in the pregame in a collision with a teammate. The Colts are having a weird thing with pregame injuries. Anthony Richardson got hit in the face by an elastic band attached to a pole. I don't know. The weird stuff happening in Indianapolis, but definitely keep an eye on the injury report, specifically on Friday, to see what is the state of Kenny Moore. I think he could make a big difference for them. Now on to the Chargers. And if you look at the injury report, it's a much longer list, as you would expect. But I think one of the most notable things, Joe Alt didn't practice with the team, but he was off to the side, taking reps, doing drills on his own. He's not wearing the boot anymore. That could end up being a big deal. Definitely keep an eye out on that. But the Chargers notably did open the window for Khalil Mack and Denzel Perryman to come back. That would be huge. Against the running game, that would be absolutely huge. But it's not guaranteed that they're going to play. Okay, Khalil Mack is listed as a limited practice. I know he was out there in pads, saw the pictures from practice. Hopefully he can come back. Denzel Perryman, he was actually able to have a full practice, so it's looking very promising that he will be back, which I think is a really big deal. I think he will be a really big help, especially because Troy Dye seems to be out with a thumb injury. I didn't see that happen during the game, so we'll have to see the last injury report to see if he's trending toward playing. But either way, Denzel Perryman coming back is a really big deal. Now, Darius Davis did practice. Darius Davis practiced. That is huge. It was a limited practice, but he might be back from his knee injury. We will see, if not this week. Hopefully he'll be back next week. Jamari Sawyer should be back. Scott Matlock should be back. Elijah Molden didn't practice with a thumb injury. We have to keep an eye on that. I think injuries on the defensive side this week are a huge deal against this Colts high-powered offense, and we'll get into all that. Sean Hand was put on IR. And to me, that's a big loss in the run game. He's really good up the middle. Luckily, we have some pretty good other guys there with Jamari Caldwell, with Tier Tart, but still something to keep an eye on in a few weeks when he's eligible to return. Notably, Andre James was seen at practice taking some first-team center reps. He didn't take all the reps. There's a chance. I'm not making promises. I won't do that. Obviously, this team absolutely loves Bradley Bozeman, but there is a chance that one of the, statistically worst centers of this century won't play this weekend. So it's something, man. That is the injury report. Definitely keep an eye on it for Friday to get a good sense of who is going to play. I think if Khalil Mack and Denzel Perryman can both play, this defense looks different. I think that's a really big deal. That being said, let's take a look at the Colts. Now, they're 5-1, like I said, number 1 in the AFC. This isn't something I think most people expected, and I think because people didn't expect it, especially with the Daniel Jones of it all, I think the vibes are just incredible in Indianapolis. Chargers fans are familiar with head coach Shane Steichen. Obviously, Herbert was at the podium the other day talking about how great of a coach he is, and I think it shows. Look, you can only play the opponent in front of you, right? You can only play the teams that you get to play, and right now, their wins have come against the Dolphins, the Broncos, the Titans, the Raiders, and the Cardinals. Notably, there's only one really good team in that mix. There's only one real playoff caliber team, and that's the Broncos. That was a close game that arguably the Broncos should have won. Leverage was what was between them and winning. Yeah, I don't know. The Broncos should have won that. That was a stupid reason to lose and not something that I hold against the team. I mean, that's how football goes sometimes. But so many of their wins are very narrow. Their game against the Cardinals was probably their most concerning game because the Cardinals they're having some turmoil. They're playing Jacoby Brissett, backup quarterback, the weird stuff with the head coach on the sideline, and they're not having a good year. Big questions about Kyler Murray, and yet they were able to put up a fight. They were able to put up good numbers. A lot of people are wondering, why would Daniel Jones be such a different quarterback here? And the answer, besides the fact that the team he was on before had horrible vibes around him, he has an offensive line finally. A good offensive line is something Shane Steichen really values, and he is finally getting it, and this is what that looks like. Now, Daniel Jones is not known for being a really good guy against pressure. We'll get into that, but he has weapons. Tyler Warren is exactly who we thought he was coming out of Penn State. Anyone who watched Penn State was like, oh yeah, this is a top 10 pick. Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, really good, solid wide receivers. Josh Downs being out shouldn't hurt too badly. Not that he hasn't made an impact, but there are just so many good receiving options here. It's a really good unit. And they come in with a lot of momentum. They've had an easy schedule. They've overperformed expectations. Things have been pretty easy, and I if you look at most people's score predictions, and when I say most people, I really mean the betting line, because they tend to be the most accurate. They are favoring the Chargers by 1.5 points in most places, and I think that is because it is a home game for the Chargers. It is that narrow. Usually home games, they'll give you 3 points one way or the other, and so the fact that it's this narrow means it's going to be a tough game. This is anyone's game. Also notably on the Colts, Jonathan Taylor, best running back in the league right now. He breaks tackles, makes great reads, gets to run really fast because of good blocking. He gets to get a lot of momentum, which makes it easier for him to break tackles. So we'll get into all this, but the Colts are one of those teams that, you can only play the teams in front of you, but they haven't played good teams. And they played the Broncos, who, while the Broncos have an extraordinarily high ceiling, they also have an extraordinary low floor, which, if any of you watched that awful London game, you will know. I think it's really unfortunate that was the London game of the week, because you had Bo Nix and Justin Fields playing absolutely horrible. Obviously, Justin Fields is on another level of horrible. I live in Chicago. I follow the Bears, and I cannot believe how many Bears fans still think that Justin Fields was a good quarterback. That being said, let's take a deep dive into this Colts offense. They have not scored less than 20 points in a game. Twice they were in the 40s. They have over twice as many passing yards as rushing. They really like their passing attack, and it makes sense. Looking at their wide receiver group, looking at how successful Tyler Warren is, it makes sense. To me, Daniel Jones is hard to evaluate here because he is a quarterback who does so poorly under pressure, and he is rarely under pressure behind this offensive line. The Colts put a lot of resources into protecting him. They do everything they can so that he doesn't have to really scramble. It's not a strength of his. He's not very athletic. He can do it. He's proven that he's willing to, but it's not like when you're playing Bo Nix or one of those quarterbacks that you really have to look out for that. I definitely think he has a lot of room to develop. He didn't develop much in New York, so he definitely can turn into a solid quarterback, maybe even a franchise quarterback. But right now, they are scoring on 65% of drives. And as much as, you probably want to give Daniel Jones credit for it, and you definitely got to give him some credit for it, Jonathan Taylor is the real story of this offense. Him and Tyler Warren are powering things. Now, Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the AFC, he's averaging 5.2 yards per carry. He's hard to tackle, great at finding holes, usually has really good blocking to work with, gets a lot of momentum going, and he has some serious explosive play potential, and the Chargers have seen how explosive running plays can ruin a game. He's also a threat in the passing game. They like to give him a downhill advantage, give him some bubble routes. That basically means the running back running toward the sideline and turning a corner, getting a lot of momentum as they receive the ball, so that they're harder to tackle. Now, the other great weapon on offense, Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State, their number one receiver. He's big, he can run routes, he's smart, he can avoid tackles, he's hard to bring down. He's also a solid blocker. He's the all-around tight end. The Colts often have Daniel Jones roll out to the right and then throw it to Warren after he blocks, and they tend to do this on first down, and it has been so effective. It's so incredibly effective that, to me, Jesse Minter absolutely has to have a plan for that specific play or it's not going to work. That being said, they will also throw the ball deep to him. He is your all-around tight end. They have to have a plan for Tyler Warren. And unfortunately, with how Derwin James has been playing, I don't know that they can just say, oh, just throw Derwin at him. They've been able to do that for years with Travis Kelce. I don't know if it'll work against Tyler Warren when Derwin James isn't playing his best. We'll see. But it's also worth noting all of their receivers are deep threats in the sense that they will scheme up a pass to any of them deep. And that's something the Chargers are going to have to pay attention to. This is a really strong offense. Like I said in my last video, they are the definition of complementary football. But this team has some sneaky weaknesses. I don't think those weaknesses are on the offensive side. I think there's a possibility that if protection breaks down, Daniel Jones may not be able to step up to that pressure. We haven't really seen that side of him in Indianapolis yet, so that could be an opportunity. Going to the defensive side. Now, this is a team with the 5th most sacks in the league with 14, and it's not just coming from one player. Tyquan Lewis and Kwity Paye both have 3 sacks, and I think when you have sacks more spread out like that, it can be a little harder to defend. Who are you going to double team? Who are you going to chip? And the Chargers are going to have to double team and chip. Even if Joe Alt is back, you still have a weakness on the other side because Trey Pipkins is unlikely to play. Honestly, even if he were likely to play, I would still want him to get some help, so that is definitely something that the Chargers need to worry about. They can't go away from the quick game. I wish they could. I really wish that they could. I like when Herbert gets to drop back and throw the ball deep, but he may not be able to. The Colts defense completely shut down Ashton Jeanty, which on one hand, it's Ashton Jeanty. He's the rookie running back leader, all that. But on the other hand, the Raiders suck. Their offensive line is really bad. Everything is bad. Their quarterback's bad. And when you have exactly one really good player on your offense, Brock Bowers has been unhealthy, so I'm not really counting him. Yeah, the defense is going to put a lot of resources into stopping it, and that's what they did, and it worked against Ashton Jeanty. But this is not a defense without weaknesses. This defense often allows explosive run plays. They have below average passing yards allowed, and I think that the Chargers might be poised to exploit it. The Cardinals definitely exposed some weaknesses in the secondary. The Cardinals were out 2 pass catchers, but they still were able to get a lot done against these cornerbacks. Jonathan Edwards has been asked to do a lot. He's a former UDFA cornerback who he's been pushed up to the starter role because of injuries. He's mostly done well, as in he has overperformed what you would expect from a UDFA, what you could ask of a UDFA, but he definitely struggled a bit against Trey McBride. I think there could be some mismatch opportunities here. I think that's something that they're going to have to look to. They should have Quentin Johnston back this week, and I think QJ and Ladd might just be able to cook something up there. So for the Chargers, how you approach this game, let's talk about that. Odafe Oweh needs to get more snaps. He got 29 last week. That makes sense. He's new to the scheme. He's got to learn what everything means. He's got to learn how to work with the people next to him. All that. That absolutely makes sense. If anything, 29 snaps is actually kind of impressive for his first week on a team. But I think he will be ready for more. I think he could help against the run. It's not, a particular strength of his, but I think Thule has been struggling to make good reads. I think the linebacker group has struggled to make good reads. Having someone else in there who's fast, who's physical, who can tackle. He was great against the run last week, so that might give a little bit of life to this Chargers run defense. Because the number one priority has to be limiting Jonathan Taylor. I would rather we take a chance on Daniel Jones just cutting up the secondary. Let him try to do that and see what happens, as opposed to Jonathan Taylor over and over again on the outside. It's not that Jonathan Taylor is particularly an outside back, it's that the Chargers are particularly weak at outside runs, and every team is absolutely taking notice of that because the Dolphins should not have been able to be in the same game as the Chargers. The Chargers have the second best opponent red zone conversion percentage. That just means they hold teams in the red zone to field goals as opposed to touchdowns 58% of the time, and that is something that needs to hold up this week because preventing touchdowns will likely be the difference because of the Chargers' red zone offense struggles. Touchdowns need to come at a premium. It cannot happen all the time. They need to limit what Jonathan Taylor can do, especially in the red zone, and they need to trust the pass defense. Put more resources into stopping the run. Chargers like to run really light boxes. I just don't know that you can afford to do that against Jonathan Taylor. I would rather we trust our secondary against the passing game than trust our linebacker group against the run game, if that makes sense. It's just been a particular weakness. Long term, the Chargers are not going to be successful if they can't stop the run, and this is a good week to find out what does it look like to go against a really good running back. Now, like I said, the offense has had some serious red zone struggles, and this week the offense has to get touchdowns, not just field goals. The Colts are a high-scoring offense. That's how they do things. You have to score a lot of points to beat the Colts. That doesn't mean they're unbeatable. They have a lot of weaknesses. They look like a very beatable team to me, but they need to get touchdowns. And I think you could look at the Chargers' play calling and question how conservative some of it has been. I would like to see them take more chances in the red zone. Maybe that means going for it on fourth down. Maybe that means giving Herbert the ball and letting him run it himself. It's not comfortable to do those things, but doing them successfully can give your team a serious boost of energy. It can give them the momentum. It can change your play calling earlier in the downs if you know that it's a 4-down situation. You can call plays more effectively from the beginning, whereas if you know it's a 3-down situation, every play has to be kind of a home run swing because otherwise it's not going to work. As much as Cam Dicker has been incredible, I don't want to see him on the field so much this week. The Chargers cannot afford it. And like I said, I think we need more designed Herbert runs, especially in short yardage situations. We saw it work well in the 2-point conversion, but even if it doesn't work super well, I think just the threat of Herbert running is enough to add a little power to the other plays, if that makes sense. It's enough to keep linebackers closer when he rolls out and he's running to the sideline, he's extending a play. If players know that he might take off and run, and we've seen him do it very effectively, then they have to respect that, and we're more likely to see guys open down the field. And I think that can make a big difference over the course of a game and over the course of the season. Putting that on tape, I think is huge. The Chargers have to get the ball to Ladd and Q. They have to. If Quentin Johnston is back, and I expect him to be, he's their number one receiver effectively, and they have to put the ball in his hands. Trust him against these cornerbacks. Trust him on any one-on-one matchup you can get with Ladd, Q, or Keenan. You have to trust. And so as much as I wish that I could just say the Chargers need to run the ball, win the game on the ground, without Hampton, I don't think that's realistic. And I don't know how repeatable Kamani Vidal's performance is. I hope it is. I'm just not sure. The Colts gave up 27 points last week to a backup quarterback that was down his two best weapons. Surely Justin Herbert, Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston can put something together. And I know that the Chargers offensive line is a horrible, horrible situation. If we have Joe Alt back, there might be some opportunities here. I also want to highlight that the Colts and the Chargers have very similar penalty numbers through week 6. I think whoever makes fewer mistakes in the second half of this game is likely to win. The Chargers need to get these penalties under control. It seems like the special teams unit has kind of figured that out, but the offense needs to figure that out as well. And if Joe Alt is back, that makes a difference because, man, these backup offensive linemen are getting reliably between 2 and 4 penalties every week, and that absolutely has to stop, man. The false starts absolutely kill me. The vibes of this game are so interesting to me because if you look at what Colts fans are saying, this seems to be the game they have the least confidence going into. It seems like that Cardinals game really shook them, and they just don't feel good about their secondary. They don't feel good about what they can do against a good arm. They are very afraid of what Justin Herbert can do. Chargers fans going into this game are really afraid of what this Colts defense could do because they have a decent front. They don't have a top 5 front, I don't think, but they've been effective at getting sacks, at getting pressures, and Justin Herbert has dealt with so many hits, this season and so both teams' fan bases are not confident going into this game. And it's pretty split across media people as to who they're picking. Look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I am predicting that the Colts are going to win. I think Kenny Moore coming back is going to make a big difference. I don't think that the Chargers have the offensive line to really cut up the secondary. So then how do you beat a team that is better than you? The Colts are better than the Chargers in terms of their talent and their roster, mostly across the board because of injuries. If we didn't have all these injuries, yeah, the Chargers would be significantly better than the Colts. So how do you beat a team that's better than you? Number one, you avoid mistakes. You let the other team make mistakes. Daniel Jones always throws a few turnover-worthy plays. That is something he reliably does. And the Chargers are coming off of a 3-interception game. Maybe the Chargers secondary is back. Maybe we are back to a point where we can expect Tony Jefferson, Derwin James, someone to be able to pick a ball off, and Daniel Jones might be the right quarterback for that. That works if you avoid penalties. Penalties are the worst mistake to lose because of, and the Chargers have had some atrocious games, but so have the Colts, and it hasn't cost the Colts as much, but I think the Chargers have an opportunity to play a cleaner game than their more talented opponent. The next thing you do is you take risks. You take risks because you have to, because that is what playing from behind looks like, and when you're playing a better team, you're more likely to be playing from behind. That can look like going for a 2-point conversion. That can look like going for a 4th down conversion. That can look like, Herbert running the ball. That can look like so many things, but it has to be done because when these things are successful, they give the team a jolt of energy. They give the team tremendous belief in themselves. And that's something that, the Chargers are coming off the win. I know that Chargers fans' vibes aren't very good. In the locker room, they seem great. They really do. So anything you can do to get that energy going, I think is huge. I think it's important that they keep the score as low as they can, win the time of possession game, win the field position game. That's something the Chargers have gotten better at. And I think turnovers become crucial. The Colts had a lot of turnovers in their last game. Both teams did. It was a very chaotic game. And the Colts play a chaotic style of football. I think the Chargers have some opportunities there to take advantage of that. And while, the Colts have some things they can rely on. They can rely on Jonathan Taylor. They can rely on Tyler Warren. But they definitely have weaknesses, especially on the defensive side. And the Chargers need to take advantage of every mismatch that they have. And where the Chargers are stronger than the Colts, such as in their passing game, they absolutely need to wipe the floor with them in that category in order to win. That being said, I am going to predict a Chargers loss. I hate to do that. I have not done that yet. I'm not sure at this point that Joe Alt is going to play. And to me, that's the big question. Is Joe Alt going to play? Is Khalil Mack going to play? We're not sure at this point. We probably won't know until Saturday. So I'm going to predict that the Colts win 30-27. I think it's going to be close, and I think the Chargers are going to successfully put up a lot of points. But ultimately, I think the Colts are going to win. I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. There's definitely a road to winning here for the Chargers. This is definitely a huge opportunity. And there's a lot at stake because if the Broncos win and the Chargers lose, the Broncos will be number 1 in the division. Now, I do think that the Giants, I think they have a strong chance against the Broncos. They looked terrible last week. I know their defense looked really good. I know they got a lot of sacks, but the Giants upset the Eagles. If the Giants beat the Chargers, the Giants beat the Eagles, they have a real chance. So we'll see. Chargers have a chance to really hang on to this division this week. There is a lot at stake. So that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday to review the Colts and Chargers game. I hope this goes well. I'm excited to see a lot of these players get back to it. If you liked what we've talked about today, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching.